photographs or shooting video of mattresses. John Ty from Saratoga was issued a what they put an APB out on you, John?
Yeah, they were looking for me, and after I was ordered to the police station, I was served with a no trespass notice.
All right, now this is, you said other people are issued these too, and my understanding is that in a housing authority property, they usually roll this stuff out against drug dealers, vandals, people who are out there as a threat to the people who live there.
That's what I've been told is why they are allowed and why the police go along with these. But I know of at least one case when a man complained about the condition of his mother's apartment. He was served with a no trespass notice, and now he cannot even visit his mother because he had the gall to complain about her conditions of her apartment.
And the people that live there are the ones complaining about this issue that they didn't think was being taken care of. And am I safe to say that they were supportive in your efforts to shed some light on it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there were some that did not want the spotlight shined on them, but I would say the majority, they just wanted the bed bugs fixed. Many of them hadn't had leases in years. They wanted the building cleaned up, some maintenance done. A lot of them had stoves that only had one working burner. I mean, there were multiple complaints, and Ed wasn't addressing any of their complaints, and then he would retaliate against anybody who dare complain about his rule, because that's what he is. He's the ruler of public housing here.
Oh, and let me just say this. If Ed Spachalski wants to call into this show and lay out his side of the story, he's more than welcome to do that. I mean, not a problem for me at all. I'd love to hear from you, 476-1300. So let's get this straight. So they say you can't go on the property anymore. It sounds like you have a pretty legit beef, though, since you're not a drug dealer, a vandal, or somebody who's interfering with the people who live there, that they're on some pretty unsolid footing here in what you were doing that day, or any day.
After that, I stayed off the property and just met people. Then a couple of weeks went by, and they were having an open public meeting there of the board. And I thought because it was an open, published, they published the meeting would be there, and it was open to the public, I thought I might be able to go to that. So I called the police before the meeting and told them that I wanted to go to this meeting, that it was a public meeting, and I thought by New York state law that I could go to a public meeting in a public building. And they said, absolutely not. The minute you set one foot on that property, you will be arrested, no matter what purpose you had.
So they're saying you can't go to a public meeting? Well, and you've never demonstrated a threat outside of the threat to the apparent fiefdom surrounding the housing authority up in Saratoga Springs.
And as I drove there that day just to see, they had their threat was real. They had multiple police officers on the ground, and I talked to them because sometimes you have to be arrested to challenge a law.
Yeah, I know.
I explained to them, and I said, I have a ripped-up shoulder with a torn rotator cuff. Would you mind handcuffing me in front? And they said, absolutely not, Mr. Todd. You set foot on this property, we will treat you like any other prisoner, including handcuffing you behind your hands behind your back, and whatever damages or injuries you suffer, you cause for yourself. So I did not try to go to the meeting that day.
So you didn't go. So now we get to this. This is curious because now the DA's office has stepped in on this, right? John, let me ask you: do you have anybody, any public officials, board members, mayor, or anybody who is just is wondering what's going on with the housing authority in Saratoga Springs, like some of these other?
Yeah, John Frank, our commissioner of accounts, because of our form of government is unique. He's been very involved in this, and I've spoken to him numerous times, and it was bumped up to the DA of Saratoga County like he's got nothing better to do.
Yeah, right.
And he made a ruling that didn't vacate the order, but it simply said, if Mr. Todd chooses to go to these meetings, his office will not prosecute him if he is arrested.
Is this Jim Murphy's office?
Yeah, it came from one of his one of the junior ADAs.
So they kind of went soars like with the Occupy movement and said, all right, you can arrest him for going to a public meeting, but if you do, we're not going to prosecute those charges.
Absolutely. So I did go to the next public meeting, and I was treated decently, and I was allowed to speak. And after the meeting, I asked if they would lift the no trespassing order, and they said absolutely not. And I was told I would have to leave the building within 10 minutes of the meeting concluding. So I can only go there and the no trespass order is valid for a year. I can only go there for the public meetings, and that's about where it stands right now.
Gotcha. So, yeah, where does it stand, though, on some of these other issues? I know I've seen this is carried out. This has been picked up by other media outlets, the Gazette, I think Times Union. It's been talked about in Talk 1300. Ed Spachalski is the monies that have been going into the authority, how he got this sweetheart contract, who's responsible for it. Is there anybody looking into some of these other aspects here? The nepotism, hiring friends, neighbors, relatives, that kind of deal.
Well, from what I understand, his son no longer works for the authority. His daughter still works there. Senator Grassley's office has contacted me. They do want to talk to me.
That's right. That was another thing. It actually got the attention because of the federal money, right? From the federal government, Senator Grassley saying, what's going on in Saratoga Springs in this housing authority?
Well, what's interesting about it is the housing authority, HUD, who actually governs these housing authorities, gives each one of them a grade. And under Spikowski, they've scored in the high 90s. But now it's turned out that the housing authority called Chelsea, which is like the poster child of bad housing authorities in the country, and has become a national scandal. They also scored in the high 90s every year by HUD. And now Grassley's called for an investigation into how these housing authorities score such high marks by HUD when they're so obviously poorly run.
Gotcha. So now we're in Saratoga Springs. So it seems like there's a little bit more than just a little smoke here. There's some fire.
I mean, there's a lot here, including his unrestricted use of housing authority vehicles, which I have pointedly asked them, why do none of these cars and trucks say Saratoga Housing Authority on it? And, he had an easy pass on one. He only lives in Half Moon. Why he has an easy pass to go from Half Moon to Saratoga?
Well, listen, we know what these authorities are all about. They're these little mini fiefdoms supported by taxpayer dollars, and they're gravy trains. That's it. That's what it is. You get these appointees because somebody's a friend of a friend. Somebody gets in higher office. Bang, they're in, and they're not the bed bugs. Did they take care of it? Did they get rid of them all? Because that's been an ongoing issue for not just housing places, but hotels and the like. It's been a growing problem in this country.
It is a national problem, and it costs a lot of money to take care of the issue. I guess he did bring in a company to take care of the issue, but we tried to find out who's put out the bid, how he hired the company. He won't give any of that information, but he did bring in Town and Country from Rochester, who went in and fumigated the entire building. And I have heard from 2 residents who still claim that they've seen 1 or 2 bugs, but they seem to have a grip on the issue right now.
Okay.
So hopefully that'll be the end of it.
Wow.
The other issues will go into the future.
All right. Got you. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.